What's up, guys? This is Kephas, and we are finally back leveling up in World of Warcraft with our Worgen Druid. We're level 20, and guys, I'm so excited to be back doing this with you guys. It's been a couple months, and if you've checked out my new Super Mario Odyssey playthrough, which I hope you are because I'm having so much fun playing that game, but if you haven't seen that yet, then you don't know my announcement I made there where I just explained that, I've been away because I was very sick for the past couple months, and I do apologize for having been away, but I was in and out of the hospital a couple times. It wasn't very fun at all, and it just really kept me down for quite a bit of time. So I apologize. Nothing serious. You don't have to worry too much about me. We got a green to upgrade. That's nice. You don't have to worry about me. Everything's fine. I'm doing just fine. It just was a thing, and everything's good now. So got a clean bill of health. I'm ready to get back into this thing. We got Super Mario Odyssey happening, and we're going to continue this. And of course, as you guys always know, if you like this video, feel free to like it, share it with your friends, and leave comments and subscribe to the channel. For more future videos on YouTube, you will see Super Mario Odyssey happening, and you will see this. And if you have any suggestions of other types of videos or games that you want to see me play, by all means, give me feedback and let me know what you'd like to see. So, as you might have noticed, we are here leveling up at level 20. Last time, it's been a while, so you might have forgotten, we did a straw poll, and I asked you guys to vote where you wanted me to vote. I kind of messed things up because I haven't leveled up that many times as Alliance. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, so I don't know the zones as well as a Horde, especially since Cataclysm, and so things have changed. And I put Dark Shore, Hillsbrad Foothills, and I think Ashenvale. I forget. I'm pretty sure it was Ashenvale. And I mistakenly put Hillsbrad Foothills in there because that is not an option if you are Alliance. And ironically, that is the one that got voted. So since I forgot Wetlands and put Hillsbrad, I figured Wetlands would be the next best thing since Hillsbrad is not an option. So I hope that's okay, you guys. I apologize for the mistake. If you'll see here, we are in Wetlands, and things are quite different since the Cataclysm. I mean, everything is so much more wet in Wetlands than it used to be, which is kind of funny. But, it's alright. And, so there's a lot that's happened here since Cataclysm, but most of it's just involving us helping out Menthil Harbor after the mess, and dealing with all the sea creatures and whatever else the crap that's happened since the Menthil Harbor got messed up, and we're gonna just be dealing with a lot of pests and that sort of thing. So it's this is one of the zones kind of like Thousand Needles, where I miss the old place is more than the new place. I think especially Thousand Needles, man. I really miss old Thousand Needles. It was so much better, in my opinion, before the Cataclysm kind of ruined it. This zone, not so much. I mean, it's mainly just Menthil Harbor. I hate that is just kind of like washed up, like just a mess now. I miss the actual harbor and the town. It's kind of like, Theramore, but at least you can still view old Theramore. But, it's whatever. It's cool. There's a story to be told here. It's, it's still neat, but, it's just one of those zones that I miss. It's weird. I don't know. Like, there are some zones that got vastly improved after Cataclysm. Like Silverpine Forest, and the story that goes on there is a great example for the Horde. This zone is an example of I kind of miss the old. I miss the old zone. Lochmodon, I kind of miss the old one. Most of the starting zones, I think, have been improved on since the changes. But just my opinion. There's just certain things that I really miss about the old world, and certain things that I prefer about the new world. Just kind of like one of those things. But it's kind of funny that I talk about that because, while we just kind of randomly kill pests here, you will notice, you've probably noticed that there was kind of an event that happened this past weekend, something that you all know called Blizzcon, and they didn't talk about too many things, just a little bit of stuff about WoW. Nothing too crazy. Not a whole lot of news. Only, that we are getting classic servers and there is a new expansion coming out. Yeah, I know. I'm excited too. So yeah, there's a lot actually that's happening. There's so much to talk about. So in this video, I figured I would just kind of, you know, while we level up, just kind of killing the pests. We'll probably get into killing some murlocs eventually and whatnot. I'm just going to tell you about what I think about all the Blizzcon stuff. And yeah, it's pretty exciting, you guys. I mean, first things first, Battle for Azeroth looks like a lot of fun. It's weird. It's not what I expected. I was expecting like an old gods thing. I think like a lot of people were. But you know, after, you know, when I really think about like what the old gods are, you know, I don't know that an expansion where, you know, we get a new villain, a new old god, like we got with the Lich King, or we got with Cataclysm with Deathwing. You know, I don't think that an expansion, or even an expansion like Warlords, where, you know, there's a bunch of people that are bad guys, kind of, you know, representing this army of the Iron Horde, where we're going to get an expansion with a bunch of old gods. Like, I don't think the old gods fit that kind of presentation where they're the comic book villain that we need to take down for the expansion. I do think we're going to fight them. I do think they're going to play a vital part in the story, but I think that the way that you tell an old god story, in my opinion, is, you know, through kind of woven in other stories, because the old gods kind of work that way. They're level 21 already. We're cooking. The old gods, as I understand them, I mean, they do play a role, but they are like a long-term, like, they plan things out. They know what they're going to do. They don't just like, bam, you know, here we are, we're going to take over the world kind of thing necessarily. They kind of work by corrupting what is there. So they're kind of like the behind the scenes, you know, they raise up their own corruption kind of thing. Like, they're going to corrupt the world, you know, kind of like right under our noses. I think that's how the old gods are going to work. I think that that's what we're going to see in Battle for Azeroth. So I don't really know that I would personally want an expansion that is just focused on old gods and Purple Void and all that. I think that, you know, the way that they're going to do it, and I hope this is how they do it, is they continue to create new stories. They continue on with the stories and the characters that we know, and weave in the old gods in those stories. So with, you know, with Azara, for example, I think we're going to get some of that, and I think that we're going to get some Inzoth stuff through that, Inzoth or whatever. Just like I think that, you know, in you know, Wrath of the Lich King, we got Yogg-Saron through Ulduar. We got Cthulhu in the base expansion. They're parts of the story. They're interwoven in. I don't know if them being the spotlight villain suits them as well. That's just my opinion. You know, I know that to some it seems kind of fresh to kind of do, you know, old god stuff. And, you know, I agree that, you know, it is something that I want to see. But I think that, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily fresh, you know, when you take old gods and you just give them the comic book villain treatment. That's not necessarily a fresh story. It's a new villain, but you're telling the same story. And I guess, like, a lot of people might, you know, have the same argument with, you know, Alliance and Horde stuff. But, you know, I think that, you know, Alliance and Horde have always been a part of the story. They're always going to be a part of the story. It's what makes Warcraft Warcraft. It's never going to go away. You're never going to see them, you know, the two sides shake hands. You know, it's just not going to happen. They're villain. They are the story. It'd be like, you know, watching Game of Thrones and just being like, okay, you know, Cersei and you know, Daenerys or whatever. Maybe this might happen. I don't know the story. But it'd be like expecting, like, certain families that have always been at odds to, I like how I was just, like, completely just mindlessly killing those guys when I was done, like, forever ago. So I should pay attention. But I don't read quest text or quest finish text. But anyways, you know, it'd be like having certain families that are clearly at odds and are always going to be at odds come together just because you want to tell a different story. Like, it is the story. Alliance and Horde is a big part of the story. It's a continuation of that same story. It's not like, you know, we are kind of revisiting it because we were kind of working together, but we really weren't working together. It's just kind of how the game made it seem. But the Alliance and Horde and Legion were never really together. There were certain individuals, you know, that were together, but as a whole, the two forces have still been at odds. So it's kind of like, you know, people were saying that on Argus right now, oh, it's very Alliance focused, and I'm like, why? Because Velen and Illidan are involved. You know, what about Eretor? He's technically a Blood Elf, so doesn't that make him Horde? Ilaria, Sylvanas, and Verisa, aren't they technically Horde? I mean, I guess they're kind of Alliance because, well, at least Ilaria and Verisa are Alliance. But, it's like, I don't think the story right now is necessarily focused at all on Alliance and Horde. It's focused on certain characters within the Alliance and the Horde. As a whole, though, the seeds have been planted for a new war between the two. And so the point being is, there's no time where these two factions are ever going to get along. It's just not possible. By nature, by history, it's kind of like, I hate to use it, well, I don't even want to say specifically, let's just say it's like certain wars that happen in the world, in the real world. They just continue because they have always, and there's probably no way that they're ever going to stop. The Alliance and the Horde are very similar to certain wars that exist in our real world. Yeah, it'd be nice, theoretically, but it's the story. And so, I think that it's fine as long as they come up with a good reason for the war to exist. And I think that's where I'm waiting to see, what they come up with. I'm cool with going back to Alliance versus Horde because, again, this is World of Warcraft. That's what Warcraft is all about. It's okay to revisit that as long as, as long as they make it, interesting and come up with a good reason for it. I think that's the key. And if they can sell people on why they're fighting, then then it's going to work. One of the things that I think that I think that I understand, and I think that a lot of people need to try to understand with a lot of the characters. A lot of times, like it's like with Sylvanas. I don't think Sylvanas is a villain necessarily. I don't think that she's all good either. She's kind of in the middle. She's kind of like, what the heck, where is this guy? The quest is like right here. Oh well, I'll just keep going. But Sylvanas is kind of somewhere in the middle. She's got some questionable motives for sure, but I think that she's fighting with the Horde right now. I think that she has a degree of loyalty to those people, but I mean she's trying to lead. It's very clear in that cinematic that she's trying to lead, but she does have questionable motives and questionable goals that she might want to achieve, and so it's interesting to see. But I think that she's a great character. Jaina, one that people are just desperate for her to be the next Arthas, which is funny because, like, they've done this, like, 22, check it out. They've done the Kerrigan story so many times now, or the Arthas story, however you want it, where, okay, we have a good guy, now they're corrupted for whatever reason, and they're a bad guy, and then people complain because, they tell the same story over and over again, but then they want Jaina to become a bad guy, and it's like, well, they've already, like, why do we want Jaina? I don't want Jaina to be a bad guy. I'm tired of the good guys becoming bad guys unless it's done well. Okay, Jaina's gone through some crap. She's gone through no more crap than a lot of people have gone through in this World of Warcraft story. Okay, people die, people suffer, people struggle. Okay, it sucks, but all things considered, she's gone through enough crap where, like, I can consider her, as Blizzard said, she's not a bad guy. She's damaged. Okay, she's gone through a lot of crap, and she's conflicted. Okay, that doesn't make her a bad guy. It doesn't mean that she's a dreadlord, or that she's working with the old gods. It just means that she's, she's a great character. She's conflicted. She's struggling. She has good motives. She has good intentions, but she is conflicted. She feels a lot of remorse, a lot of regret for the things that she's done, for her father dying, for what's happened to Theramore, and a lot of other things that she feels responsible for. That's interesting, because it means she's conflicted. It means that she's not black or white. It means that we can speculate onto what her issues are. Oh, there it is. And that makes her an interesting character. So you've got Sylvanas. you know, who's an interesting character, who we don't know everything yet, and we want to find out. You've got Jaina, who's an interesting character because we don't know, we want to see how this story plays out and how she feels and where it's going to lead to. You've got Anduin, who has been all this time all for peace between the two factions, but now is leading the charge against the Horde. Very much a change. So what's his deal? What pushed him over the edge? Was it the things that I don't want to try to spoil too much, but what led him to this? These are interesting ideas because they mean that the characters are all in a state of flux. We don't know where they're going to turn out. We don't know if they're going to flip and become bad. We don't know if they're going to stay, you know, do the right thing. But one thing is for sure, I think that we're getting to the realization that no matter what happens, there's good on both sides. And that creates the best thing about Warcraft. There are two compelling factions, and there's reasons to be on both sides. And what's funny is you're going to have people that don't agree with that and believe that their faction, like, I mean, you know, the things that people think that, you know, I mean, okay, spoilers for the next, like, 2 minutes. Skip ahead. If Sylvanas burns down Theramore, for example, then there are people that are going to feel like there is no compelling side for the Horde, and Sylvanas deserves everything she gets, just like a lot of people felt about Garrosh, who committed war crimes. But if you're, you know, a Horde player, then you're like, hey, this is war. If you're a Forsaken, then, you know, the Forsaken would not exist if the Alliance had accepted them and didn't reject them just because they were undead. Because before they were undead, they were family members of Alliance people, and they became the Forsaken because they were Forsaken. There are compelling reasons to point the finger at both sides for their contributions. And sometimes it's more on the fault of one side. I think you could say, well, Gen Greymane is fueling a lot of this war because he's bitter at what Sylvanas did to his son in an act of war. I mean, it's war. This is war. They're not, like, you know, there's no, like, in this era, there's not, I mean, you know, we have a Geneva Convention, so there are, I guess, rules, you know, that you shouldn't violate. You know, we're not, like, there's a limit, genocide, that kind of stuff. Like, you know, the whole Garona thing, like, you know, forced pregnancy, that kind of stuff with Alexstrasza. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is not cool, like, very bad, you know, but at the same time, like, it's still war, so people die, places get destroyed, it happens. That's part of war, sad to say. So, you know, I think that there are compelling sides on both sides, and that's kind of the conflicting points. So I think it's setting up a much more interesting, I guess, revisit to an old topic, but I really want to see where it goes. I want to see what it leads to. I want to see what Pandora's box we open through this war, and how it's affecting the world. Because, again, it's part of the story. So that's my opinion. You might feel differently, and that's fine if you're tired of the story. I get that, and you might want to see something different. And I understand that, because it is a very old story. But it's kind of like when you play Mario, you know, you expect Peach and Bowser, or, yeah, Bowser to steal Peach and Mario have to save Peach. That's part of the story. And yet Mario Odyssey, even though it has that same theme, it's still a really great video game. So, you know, I wouldn't count it out too much just yet, just because of, you know, because of the revisit to Alliance and Horde. Let's see where it goes. I'm interested, and I'm excited to see where that story goes. And I mean, they managed to make a really great cinematic out of it. So if it brings more story to the characters that are involved in these factions, and it's compelling, that's fine. I don't mind, as long as they tell a good story. It could go good, it could go bad. Warlords of Draenor was a cool idea. It wasn't, the story itself wasn't a bad idea. It's just the presentation and how it was done. It wasn't done very well. A lot of the warlords didn't get a good send-off. You know, there's a lot of reasons why that story didn't work. Dang, 23. We've gone through 3 levels now talking about just the story aspect of Battle for Azeroth. But I have a lot of thoughts on that. You know, as far as the game itself, it's exciting. There's not too much to say. Features are features, and, you know, they're all welcome. Straight-backed orcs, straight-backed trolls, sub-races. There's not a lot to say about it. I mean, there really isn't. It's all good stuff. Like, I can't really go on very much about that kind of stuff because any new feature is welcome. If it's a new class, cool. If it's a new race, cool. It's always going to be good because it adds more customization to the game. There's no bad there. And they're saying they're going to add even more sub-races. Great. That's even better. So, like, that's, you know, they're adding a lot of customization this time, and I think that's something that we've wanted for years. You know, a lot of the stuff that's coming with this expansion is good stuff. New zones, new dungeons, new, you know, all that kind of stuff is great. No garrisons, as far as we know. Thank God. I'm ready to see that whole mechanic concept die. You know, I'm ready for it to move on. So that is just fine with me. So, you know, that's awesome. And so, you know, I've talked a little bit about Battle for Azeroth. There really isn't too much else to say outside of the story, I think. I think the rest of it is pretty standard stuff that I'm excited about everything. You know, everything that's coming, and I can't wait for it to get here. I'm hoping that we get it sooner rather than later. Actually, a lot of features, which is really cool, a lot of stuff is coming before Battle for Azeroth, but one of the things I completely forgot about is the changes to leveling throughout the entire game, and which is ironic because we're doing a leveling series. But scaled leveling is probably one of the best, most exciting things I've heard about. Even though I forgot about it now, it's probably one of the things I'm most looking forward to in the game because I love leveling. So being able to level up a character with heirlooms throughout the entire game and choosing which expansion you want to explore. Like, you can go, you hit level 60 and you choose between Outlands and Northrend. Dude, that is huge. That is something that I've wanted forever, which means that a lot of people are never going to go to Outlands again. And having that leveling experience change, and hopefully this will improve the leveling experience. Hopefully it doesn't slow it down too much, but hopefully it means that you can stick in a zone for much longer and actually get the full story. That's awesome. And I'm looking forward to that. And you know what? When these new sub-races come in and we get that new change, you know, for all I know, that change might hit before the end of this series. But we're definitely going to do more leveling as these new features come rolling in, because I like to experience that kind of stuff with you guys. But as you can see, we need to head back to Menethil Harbor. So this is a really good point to cut things off as we've talked about Battle for Azeroth. And in the next episode, as we continue on leveling here in Wetlands, I want to talk about my thoughts about WoW Classic. So I hope that you will tune in for that episode as well, and I hope that you enjoyed this one, as we just kind of dealt with the pests out here in Wetlands. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you are as excited about Battle for Azeroth and the future of this game, and this series as well. But thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. This is Kephas. Until next time.